Good evening, everyone, again, and welcome to another exciting episode of the Gail Lewis podcast. Tonight, I'm your host, Gail Lewis, as always, and tonight I'm very excited about our guest. He is a researcher, he's an English professor, and he's an all around great guy whose research I truly enjoy. Give it up, everyone, for Dr. Joel Kuszai. Hi, Joel.
Hi, thank you. Thank you for having me, Gail.
Oh, thank you for guesting. I really appreciate it. And I was listening to that rousing round of applause that you got from our live audience. So, whether you are watching or you're listening to us this evening, welcome and welcome, Joel. I'm excited to talk a little bit about your research. And for those of you who are not familiar with Joel's work, he is a lot of things as far as research goes. And like I said, he also chairs the English department at Queensborough Community College. And he's done a lot of research into race and disparity, and most recently, some research into the Klan. So I wanted to start there with Joel, and maybe a little bit of a background of exactly, and his research really kind of focuses on the 20th century Klan, or the modern Klan, if you want to say modern. But just to tell our audience exactly what the Klan is, if you could start off there, Joel, I'd appreciate it. And then we'll roll into what you do and with your research.
Sure. Of course, it's an internationally known hate group, a terrorist organization with roots in the 19th century and the outrage and the terrors that they committed in the South. In the 20th century, it was slightly different. They drew upon the legacy of that, the iconography of films like Birth of a Nation, which presented a sort of an exaggerated portrait of the organization, which needs no exaggeration, but it gave them the kind of outfits and the kind of look, because the founder of the modern Klan harkened back to the original, but really wanted to appear as they appeared in the film. So they had funny costumes and hoods and a lot of regalia and apparatus as a fraternal organization, and of course rooted in hate, racism, hatred of immigrants, anti-Catholicism, anti-Semitism, and more. They were obviously a really terrible organization, and they were also a kind of political force in the 1920s. They were very mainstream. Millions of people joined. In some areas, 1 in 8 eligible Protestant men were members. In some areas, even higher than that.
Wow.
At certain neighborhoods, it would shock you to know about, for example, where I've been focusing lately in South Queens, South Jamaica, as a sort of epicenter for Klan activity in the 1920s. But they were really all throughout Queens. They probably had 50,000 members in the area at their height. And certainly in Queens alone, they had probably 10 to 12,000 members in the 1920s and early 1930s. They were slightly different in the North, but they did not commit the same level of violence that was done in the South. Certainly it did happen, but it was nothing like in the South. And of course, there was intimidation and a lot of political work, and of course, cross burnings and a lot of frightening stuff. But they were different in that they were also Republican, whereas in the South, they'd all been Democrats. And my work is focused on linking up the rise of a kind of Republican Protestant force in the 1920s in Queens that was really infiltrated and really an expression of the Klan. Really, whether to say, for example, somebody like Fred Trump was a member is to lose the point. He was part of this broader community in which most people were on that side, that Protestant, radical Protestant view, and sort of adopting political positions that we would expect from the 21st century vantage, but at the time must have been pretty shocking. So lately I've been looking at the formation of the Jamaica branch of the NAACP in that moment, which is when they formed the branch.
So there's a lot to unpack there. First of all, you said that the Northern was different from the Southern clan. Um, were they different in their iconography or their that's a made up word actually? It's not a word. In their how they presented themselves. So did they wear hoods? Did they have those same
They
necklaces?
did all those, right. They did all those same things, and they looked identical because the corporate owner, which was the clan, was really a corporation, and I should say an outrage scam. Everything bracketed aside about hate and violence. It was a kind of a complete scam, like a cash grab, and they required the locals to follow dress codes to the point of ordering only from the clan owned maker of the robes and hoods. They owned everything. They even had their own little insurance company and tried to get their members to buy into that. They were really a profit venture.
And so it seems as if it was you're kind of damned if you do, damned if you don't. So you had to, if you were a business person, it seems like you had to join, even if you weren't really into what they were espousing. But here's my other question. When people joined, you just said thousands upon thousands of people are joining this organization in the 20th century. Did people know that about what they were doing, or was it just more of a social thing? Like all of my neighbors are members, so I'm going to be a member too. Were people aware? And yeah, I'll just leave it there. Were people aware when they joined?
That's a very good question, and I think so. I really think so. They were in the papers. They sought publicity. They wore masks to conceal their identities, but not all of them wanted to be concealed. There were some who were willing to speak, certainly some of the leaders and some of the local leaders. But yeah, they definitely they would go to churches and walk down to the front of the the pews at the and drop a sack of gold in the hands of the minister and then march out. They did a lot of things to get attention. Everybody, I'm pretty convinced that around the corner from where the Trump family lived in the early 1920s in Richmond, or like a hillside area, shall we say, and right around the corner from there was a Klan church.
In that area.
I'm sorry?
In that Jamaica Estates area, Hillside Avenue.
They lived there later. Before they lived there, they lived on, I think it was in the 130s. It's in the census records. But around the corner from that was a Klan church, and the minister there was a member. And we've seen his stuff in archives because he was much loved by the men of the Richmond Hill 83 Klan. And there were huge events at that church where, when the Klan was known to be coming, people would be standing outside trying to get in and were unable to. And there would be commotion outside the church. So there was no secret about what was happening. I think there's an edge where you could give plausible deniability. Certain ministers were never connected with them and may have been privately. We don't know. But you could go church to church, and Klan church, not Klan church, all throughout South Queens, and even in Flushing and Astoria as well, to be honest.
Where was the epicenter of the Klan in Queens? Was it more of a northern Queens thing or the southern Queens, or was it pretty much everywhere?
It was pretty much everywhere. Eventually, they opened up a what they called a county office on Jamaica Avenue, right near where the Van Wyck crosses Jamaica Avenue, goes under Jamaica Avenue. Right on a couple blocks from there is a site that was their headquarters for a while in 1926, 27, and was the site of some interesting meetings because that was when they started to flood New York with operatives against Governor Smith's campaign for president. That was why Queens became the center of the New York Klan, and maybe for a bit the national Klan. A lot of energy was really focused on Queens. So it was Richmond Hill, Jamaica. Jamaica had probably the largest of the so-called claverns or chapters. That would have been the one that Fred Trump would have been a member of. If he was a member, he would have likely been a member of Jamaica number 38, which was the one that also organized the action at the Memorial Day Parade in 27 that led to the riot at which Fred was detained. But that was really the work of the leader of the Jamaica clan and an outside operative from Philly who arrived the year before, as they were kind of building up. So it was really Central Queens, South Queens. What I've learned lately is how many of them lived in South Jamaica. And now I'm kind of looking block to block at like where they lived and how that neighborhood changed over the years that was happening and just after.
So a few questions. Do we know for a fact that Fred Trump was a member of the Klan? And if so, which, no, it was like never written, or was it just kind of supposed?
No.
Or
I wonder if the Trump Family Archive has an answer to that. There's no evidence of it directly. Some of the newspaper reports indicated that those detained were in robes. Not all articles do. Not all articles mention his name. Some do. Some give his address. Some don't. I think it's very likely that he was, but that would not have been unusual in his social environment at the age he was,
right.
Mid-20s, late 20s. That's probably the sweet spot for a lot of especially those who were active during the kind of Smith. 1928 was a really big year in Queens for the Klan. And if he had been active, it would have been in those years with the Jamaica 38, likely, but there is no evidence of it, and other than him being detained, possibly in robes. And again, I think that there are certain neighbors of his who were members of the Klan who were named in court, even. So I think it's quite. There was Jamaica 38 had 1,000 members.
Wow.
And maybe more.
Wow. So we don't know definitively if he was. Which kind of brings me to some other things about the Klan itself. Were they, I guess in the 20s, they were politically active and they were against the Smith presidency. Was it because Smith was a Democrat or a Republican, or was it just because he was more progressive in his views of race?
That certainly, the last part would certainly have been true. And one of the things they were working on for legislation in New York and nationally as well was like segregation literature, marriage, bills to prevent interracial marriage and things like that. And Smith was not for any of that. He was a progressive. Primarily, they did not like him because he was Catholic and he was a so-called wet. He was against prohibition. So they had lots of reasons to hate him. When he was governor earlier in the 1920s, there was a bill passed by a future mayor of New York, James Walker, passed a bill that effectively asked the Klan only to put their membership rolls on file with the Secretary of State. It was called the Walker Bill, and it was an anti-Klan bill. And really it came because Smith and Walker were being pressured by, good sense to shut them down. And they tried the ways that they could. And so they were also very angry at him for having attempted to do that. And of course it didn't work. But yeah, they did not like him because he was a Catholic. He was or against prohibition. And yeah, he was a Democrat and a progressive, certainly.
Wow. He was against prohibition.
He was against prohibition. He was a wet. He was for ending, prohibition and allowing the sale of alcohol. He was caricatured in their papers, their materials, as being a drunk and a lot of like crazy stuff. And they went after him. They lined his train, as well-written story in his biography, as he was campaigning in 28. They would have cross burnings so that as he rode by in a train, he would witness that. I guess that did bother him greatly.
Oh my gosh. And my last question, and then I want to pick up on part 2. We're going to do part 2, and I want to delve into the Jamaica branch of the NAACP and how they factor in to all of this in part 2. But my last question for this part, just with the cross burnings, that just brings me to just thinking, do we know when the last cross burning in Queens County was? Historically?
If I had to guess, I would say 1946.
Okay.
But that's just a guess.
And that was the clan, a clan cross burning, I guess.
One of the things about the Klan that I've noticed, in especially looking at like local articles from Southeast Queens, is as many things they did, other people used them to intimidate their neighbors. And so you don't always know if it was officially the Klan or somebody pretending to be the Klan to scare someone. And it happened a disturbing amount. And sometimes you can tell, like, because the Klan usually used their official letterhead, and the other ones probably were not. Sometimes it'd be teenagers, reporters trying to get a photo. But yeah, my guess would be 48 because that was the last big sort of tangle. But I bet you maybe the 80s. I don't know. That's a really good research question. The last one.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Joel, for sitting down with us for part one. I want to go on in part two, kind of delve into the NAACP Jamaica branch and how that came to be, etc. And if you want a little bit more information about Joel, he is on Substack. You can find him. It's at Anon. Say that for me, Joel.
Anon Saint Univa.
Okay. ANONST UNIVA. That's his Substack. Thanks so much for joining us, Dr. Joel Kuszai. Thanks, everyone. This has been the Gail Lewis podcast, part one with Joel. He's going to come back for part two, so please join us there as well. And we'll see you again here on the Gail Lewis podcast real soon. Thanks so much for watching, everyone.